Last time, we looked at how the revenue impact of a price change is influenced by the price elasticity of demand. This time, I'd like to take a look at how a government intervention is impacted by the price elasticity. And what we'll see is that in markets where demand is elastic or inelastic, that's going to change how we may want to intervene in that market. So first, we need to think about why would we even want to intervene in a market? Well, that means that we're trying to change that market outcome, right? That equilibrium that we saw previously. And often the goal of this process is to change the quantity in the market. Whether that's the quantity demanded or quantity supplied, we want that quantity to change. And we can often do that by changing prices. And so what we're going to do is take a look at how the elasticity will impact the different uses of the government intervention. So let's take a look at our model and see what that looks like. Well, if we start with our original supply and demand model here, we have a demand curve, we have our supply curve, and we see that this is the equilibrium price, right? So that's the market equilibrium. This is the market equilibrium quantity. Right, so if we don't change anything about the market, we don't do anything, this is the price and quantity that we would expect to see. Well, what happens if then we intervene in this market? Well, the goal is to influence this quantity down here. And we know if demand is downward sloping, then one way to change the quantity is if we increase the price, we'd actually move to a higher point on that demand curve. Well, one way to accomplish that is to set a price floor. And so a price floor is really nothing more than the floor that you're standing or sitting on, right? What is its purpose? It's to keep you from going down further. Right? And that's exactly what we are doing here. You'll notice the price floor is above that market price. And if we didn't do that, right, then we wouldn't be impacting the market at all. We wouldn't be changing that market price. So the first thing is we need to take this price floor, set it above the market price, and then the goal is to think about this lower quantity here. This is the quantity then we would get when we institute a price floor. And in order to do that, that would be this price over here. Well, how is it that the price elasticity of demand would impact this price floor in the market? Well, we need to think about what that elasticity of demand looked like. And remember, that was the percentage change in quantity divided by the percentage change in price, right? And we took absolute values so that we could talk about this thing in terms of its magnitude and not really focus on the signs here. Well, what would this thing look like if we, say, had a price elasticity of demand that was fairly inelastic, like, say, 0.5? What would this look like instead if we had an elasticity that was more elastic, like, say, 2? Well, we need to first think about what the impact of this price floor is. And so this has to come from some change, some price that we've instituted. And so let's say that this is at the market price, that this is $10. Then we institute a price floor at $12. So we've increased the price by $2 here. Right? So then looking at our price elasticity sort of formula, this percentage change in price, right, that's that $2 increase. Well, remember, we use the midpoint formula here, so it's not actually 20%. It turns out this is about 18%. But then we have that percentage change in quantity in the numerator. Down here, if it's elastic, we have the same thing. You'll notice the price change between these two cases is constant. And so then we have the percentage change in quantity here. Well, what would this look like over in our graph? Well, demand that's really inelastic, remember the whole purpose of this thing was to say that, oh, if we have a percentage change of 1%, then we'd expect to see a corresponding 0.5% change in the quantity demanded. Whereas when demand is elastic, that corresponding quantity change is actually 2%, right? So demand that's inelastic is more steep. And so this would be demand that looks like it's inelastic, and this would be relatively elastic. Right? And it's really just in comparison to one another. But you'll notice something as I drew this inelastic demand curve that same price change up here actually only changed quantity by this much. It's a lot smaller than it would be before. Well, we can quantify that impact. Let's say we started at, say, 10,000 units. So maybe the goal here is the government wants to institute a price floor for cigarettes in order to decrease the quantity demanded as a result of that. Well, you'll notice the differing impacts. If we have, say, demand that's relatively inelastic, right, then this percentage change in quantity, this would actually only be about 0.009. Well, out of those 10,000 units, what we're going to see, that's this point here, that's only about a decrease of 90 units. Down here, when demand is elastic, right, it stretches more, what we're going to see is that this 18% change is over 3,000 units. Right? This is a huge impact down here. And so the impact on the quantity in the market that comes from this same price floor depends directly on the price elasticity of demand. And so what we want to do is be able to take that impact into account as we look at why do we institute a price floor if the goal is to change this quantity. We need to think about what's going on there.